as follows. And this is taken from the Megillah Tanit, the early pre-Mishnah record, which was written down concerning festivals and fasts. There it says the 8 days of Chanukah were instituted, days when you shouldn't fast, because when the Greeks entered the temple, they found all the oils in the temple had become impure. And when the kingdom of the house Hasmoneans was victorious, they made a search and they only found one jug of oil which had upon it the seal of the high priest. And there was enough oil in it to last for 1 day. A miracle occurred, and from this they were able to kindle the lights for 8 days. After 8 days they could already prepare fresh pure oil. The next year they fixed these and made these days and made them Yamim Tovim, holy days, B'Halel V'Hoda'ah, to be expressed through saying the well-known sections of Tehillim known as Hallel, which are recited also on the 3 Regalim and Rosh Chodesh in part, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, and Rosh Chodesh, V'Hoda'ah and Thanksgiving, which is expressed both in the Amidah and in Birkat HaMazon. So on this there's a basic question which the Maral raises here. Now, what is this significance of the miracle that this miracle should become commemorated amongst Am Yisrael? And because of this, what did they do? They made days when you have to give thanks and praise to Hashem. Now, when do we say Hallel? And when do we give praise to Hashem? There's a general rule that is given for situations of great trouble from which we were saved through miracles. The nation was saved. And we don't find that because of the miracle, they introduced the mitzvah kindling the lights, which doesn't bring any type of salvation to the people of Israel, to anybody. Makes no difference to them. Okay, there's a mitzvah of kindling lights, but that's not a way of expressing thanksgiving. For that you don't say Hallel. So according to what we explained before, that the reason why the Seleucid Hellenists attacked the people of Israel and persecuted them, as we explained, was to nullify from them the power of the Torah and the power of holiness. That's what we explained also in the previous Shurim. The mitzvah לנו היא המעלה השכלית, האלוקית. בלבד הביטול התורה הוא ביטול ישראל. They wanted to nullify the power of Torah amongst the people of Israel, because they believed in idols, and even the higher levels of the Greek civilization, and they believed in the mind of man. They believed in the powers of nature. and they were opposed to any concept of higher holiness. So they wanted, as we explained before, two things. On the one hand, they wanted to oppose the spreading and the learning of Torah, because Torah is based upon the absolute will of God, which is beyond the mind of man. And they also wanted to nullify this divine service of the temple, which represented Kedusha, holiness, a level of life that we follow the absolute God. So since the Greeks were out to nullify the Torah, and without Torah the world can't exist, Bittul Israel comes through Bittul Torah. If there's no Torah, there's no Israel. But Israel were chosen to be the people on earth who would demonstrate how the highest level of the human being comes through accepting the absolute will of God. Or they did believe in making beautiful temples. But the beautiful temples had to be connected with beautiful objects of worship, as was found in the Greek temple. So, the Beit HaMikdash, which represents the transcendental power of holiness, that they wanted to nullify. The main Kedusha is shown in the Beit HaMikdash. That's why the kindling of the lights in the Beit HaMikdash is the commemoration of the miracle that occurred in lighting the menorah which lit up the Beit HaMikdash. And we say further that the main concept of fixing the days of Chanukah was to commemorate the way in which the Hasmoneans were able to conquer the Greeks. And to make it clear that this not come through the strength and the power of the courageous Hasmoneans. You know, one's likely to think that it was the power of the Greeks, the power of the Hasmoneans, who were military heroes, and with their great strength they were able to overcome the enormous odds, who had power and weapons 100 times as much as were in the power of the small Hasmonean group. And therefore the miracle came through the lights of the menorah, that everyone should know that the victory of the Hasmoneans came because of the power of God. And the war in which they were victorious, that was from Hashem, that was from God. So this is one of the most important principles. Now, this approach of the Maral is of enormous significance for us today, because we are going through a similar situation of crisis. It's really a world crisis. Namely, that the divine image of the human being is becoming destroyed. And one of the causes of destruction is because human beings have power over nature, and they have power also over different territories on this globe. And a great section of mankind, they're battling for a high level of rulership over all the sources of nature. And different groups are battling to take possession of different tracts of earth on this globe, and even of what surrounds this globe. And also individuals are losing sight of the spiritual basis of the human being and also of this globe. And even amongst the people of Israel, where this concept, which goes all the way through the Bible, that the earth is a constant creation of the divine God who is above nature, and people are forgetting about the divine God above nature, and they're forgetting also about the spark of divinity which exists in the soul of each human being. And therefore, they're losing sight of the moral basis, the striving for saintliness and godliness within man, both individuals as well as the human race as a whole. And the only ones who are keeping up this concept are those Jews who have remained loyal through thick and thin, even in times of the greatest suffering and darkness, that the root of life is the spiritual moral God, and the root of life of the individual and the life of the nation of the people of Israel is because we are the ones who've got to demonstrate in our own lives the power of God, who's above nature and above also what comes naturally to the human being. So the miracle of Chanukah, which exists in the time when this spirit of Hellenism, who took man as the measure of all things, took hold of a great part of the world, and even, unfortunately, most of the people of Israel, the land of Israel, it was left to the Kohanim. And why to the Kohanim? As he explained, the Kohanim represent the service of the temple. And the service of the temple is a lesson in objects that are taken from nature and how to dedicate them to the transcendental God. So this is a lesson for today, because modern intellectualism and also what's known as culture has in it a little power taken from biblical models. But the major power comes from the Greeks, the development of Greek civilization. Western thought is intertwined with the concepts of the power of nature, and not recognizing the spiritual and moral mind which is behind nature. So, therefore, this lesson is very important. And we find today, in the resurgence of Jewish nationalism, the model of the Maccabees has in fact become debased and distorted to go and describe the might of the Maccabees, the Hasmoneans, more on the side of Hellenism, in other words, without godliness and without saintliness, but to describe it in terms of the development of the human body, of sports and entertainment, and the principle of pleasure, to have fun, the principle of the worship of beauty, even though the beauty is governed a great deal by erotic and materialistic concepts, but in the eyes of artists, the human body is regarded as the highest model of beauty, and bodily instincts. This is the subject of many of the arts of today, in literature, even in philosophy, hedonism, and certainly in the graphic arts. So it's being perverted. What's a Maccabea? Maccabea is a major sports event, which would have been the delight of the Seleucids. So what the Maral refers to here is not just dealing with the age of the Maccabees, dealing with today. So therefore he develops further here. If you carry on in the second column, the page which I've distributed, that we find the target of the Seleucid Greeks was to keep the temple. They didn't destroy it. They want to transform it in a temple for idols. That's why they made it impure. At the same time, they decreed that learning Torah and fulfilling the mitzvot has become a sin for which they'll be arrested. So what did Hashem do? He gave power. The question is, why did he give power specifically to the family of the high priest? This was what Hashem meant. They were opposed to the true service of the temple, the Hellenists. Who could oppose them? The priests themselves. That means although the principle of priesthood in the temple is that it's to develop peace on the highest level, and we know Aaron, the first high priest, is known as the model of someone who loved peace, pursued peace, and spent his life trying to create peace between all the different forms of strife that went on amongst the nation. So Hashem said, it's this group who in this instance must battle the war against the Greeks. Similar to the way we find in the Chumash, same situation. When on the threshold of entering the land of Canaan, it's mentioned in the Chumash, so great danger came for the people of Israel from their association with Moab on the border. And the Moabites, they knew, they had heard it from Bilam also, that the people of Israel are always blessed, but you can demoralize them. So they sent the most beautiful girls to go and use forms of seduction to take the young Jewish men, young men of Israel, and having relations with them, and thereby also bring them to the idols. And there was a great plague upon the people of Israel, and it was endangering the whole nation, until who got up to demonstrate you can't do it? Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen, the grandson of Aaron. Pinchas. He said, yes, we've got to create peace. How can we create peace? There's no alternative. I'll have to use means even of killing those who are at the head of the movement to assimilate, intermarry and demoralize the moral power of the people of Israel. So since there was a head of one of the tribes of Israel who was also involved in liaison, and he got together with the daughter of the king of Moab to demonstrate these days you can assimilate. We Jews don't need to be separate. Moab is our neighbor. We were sort of very distantly related to our forefathers, from Lot, who was the nephew of Abraham. So we'll make a bond. Doesn't matter. We'll intermarry. We'll worship their idols and give up our Judaism. And because of his heroic act, which was an act of violence, Hashem said, I'm giving you the covenant of peace. That will bring peace, Brit Shalom. In other words, sometimes there's no alternative. The same thing happened in the time of the Hasmoneans. Hashem, he specially put it into the hearts of Matityahu. Some say he was even the Kohen Gadol himself. Some Yochanan was the son of the Kohen Gadol. Or maybe even the Kohen Gadol. And his descendants, Matityahu and Yehuda, his son, and the other sons, they were the ones who led the battle against the Hellenists. So, following here the expression of the Maral, so what Hashem do? It was they who were chosen to lead the battle. And when they were victorious, it was the few who were saintly and righteous, as we say in our Thanksgiving, those who busied themselves with the Torah, who were able to overcome the many. And when they had no oil to demonstrate the light, we could say also the supernatural light of the temple, the miracle occurred in order to dedicate the temple. That's what's called Chanukah, because when we know this hint, Chanukah, they rested from the battles on the 25th. But the deep explanation of Chanukah means V'yimechanchem et Beit HaMikdash arei shetzimur to b'nei Yavan, that they reconsecrated the holy temple after the sons of Yavan had made them impure. And why did this miracle occur through the oil? Because the victory of the Hasmoneans over the Greeks, who had made the oil, had made the temple impure, so Hashem wanted to demonstrate the service of Am Yisrael with the light of the menorah, because they made the Heichal impure. The word Heichal is used. Heichal is the name given not to the Holy of Holies, but to the holy place. That's the Heichal. The Holy of Holies is called, it's called the Devir, the place from which the Word of God comes out. It's Kodesh Kodashim, where there was the Ark. The Heichal contained 3 items. The table of showbread, representing the material blessing that would come upon the people of Israel, if the way in which the 12 loaves of bread demonstrate that the 12 tribes have to work together to do kindness to one another. And then there was the inner altar on which the incense went up to the heavens, the incense cloud. This represented service of God. And then there was the menorah, which was the power of true enlightenment, to demonstrate that the Greeks, for the world, were an enlightenment for mankind. For the people of Israel, they were darkness, because the true light is the light that comes from God. So the Maharal is fond of giving mnemonics. If you analyze the letters, he says Heichal, if you add up the numerical value of Heichal, it comes to 65. Yavan, Greek, Yavan is Ionia in common literature of the world. In the Tanakh, it's referred to Yavan, it's Ionia. If you take the letters Yavan, they make up 66. So therefore, the Malchut Yavan had a majority. They had one more than the power of the Heichal. And that's how they were able to make it impure. Because from the point of view of the Heichal alone, Yavan is strong. Because the Heichal is really, even the menorah itself in the Heichal of the 7 branches, represents the Torah Sheba'al Peh in the world of nature, the oral tradition. It's shown in many ways. One of the ways is on the parochet in our yeshiva. If you look at it, it's got on it an image of the 7-branch menorah. And then what is written in the flame, the 7 flames. In the 7 flames, you have the 3 branches on both sides, making up 6. There's the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the oral tradition. Because the truth is, to kindle the lights of the menorah is permissible even for someone who's not a Kohen. The only one that has to be done by the Kohen is the Ner Maravi. That means it's the one lamp that turns towards the hidden Holy of Holies. So if you look carefully, you'll see on our parochet the 6 orders of the Mishnah which deal with the material world. And the middle shaft is that lamp that goes towards the Holy of Holies, and is the power of Yirat Hashem. And with the power that you recognize, the Torah which we're involved with in daily life, to fulfill it in all different areas of life, and the 6 is really the 3-dimensional world. But if we turn to the 7th, which is the godly dimension, which is found in the material world, like the concept of the Shabbat and the 6 days, as we've described. So the Greeks can have a power over this. Why? Because the Greeks say man is the measure of all things. And you Jews, you also deal constantly with the power of the human intelligence to develop the oral tradition and to try to understand it more deeply. Until today, in order to master the Torah Sheba'al Peh, we need to develop the human mind in all its aspects. If a person really wants to master it, it's got to master many sciences. Without that, won't be able to understand many things. He's got to use his intelligence and stretch it to highest levels. And that's also why we find today the Jews have a stronger mind, as so many even non-Jews have analyzed, in all areas of life. Where did it come from? From this lifelong, going right through the traditions of the Jewish people, there always being an elite element who concentrate upon developing the mind of the Jewish people. Through what? Through studying every aspect of life in connection with the Torah, but recognizing that ultimate wisdom comes really from the Holy of Holies, and to direct towards the Holy of Holies. So, but nevertheless, Heichal is only 65. Greeks is 66. So they made it impure. They were able to. So they made all that says, Kol hashmanim shebeheichal. They were able to make impure which type of oil? All the oils that were used in the heichal, in the holy place. And he says, what is the significance of oil? Because the oil is dedicated to holiness. With the oil, it says in the Chumash, they anointed and consecrated all those who are doing work in the Mishkan, in the sanctuary, and also all the vessels of the Mishkan. So the Shemen Mekachi Mushkin Akol. And this is the main Kedusha. And they, unfortunately, the Greeks, they managed to make this impure. What was left? But there was something left which was not oil from the Heichal, which is the Kodesh. It was oil connected with the Kodesh Kodashim. It was the oil which had on it the seal of the high priest. And what was the significance? Seal of the high priest, what was that? So he says, the high priest, he is the one who goes in the Holy of Holies. He is the one, on the most holy day of the year, he has to clothe himself in special, most holy garments, more than all the others. It was had 8 different types of garments. It's the 8th dimension, not the 7th. The 8th dimension. The 8th dimension is the dimension which is transcendental. And that's why the bris is on the 8th day. That's why the Torah was given after 7 times 7 days. It's the 8th dimension. And we know the longest chapter in Psalms, 119, it's called 8 times, because every letter of the Aleph base is repeated 8 times at the beginning of the verse to represent the 8th dimension, which is the supernatural, the transcendental dimension. So, this jug of oil was left over with the seal of the high priest, because the Kohen Gadol, he is the one who goes lifnai v'lifnim. He goes in the Holy of Holies. And this type of Kedusha is above the level of the Greeks. The Greeks did not accept the concept of the transcendental mind of the universe. And therefore they have no power over this. They were not able to rule over this small jug of oil because they had on it the seal of the high priest. Because it says, first of all, if you look at Heichal, the word Heichal has underneath it 2 dots, is the Tzere. So the Tzere, if you're going to vocalize Heichal, you'll put 2 dots underneath, because it's as though there was another Yud. In other words, there's another Yud, numerically speaking, another 10 levels higher. Only it's hidden. The Heichal, the A is hidden. You can pronounce it, but not as a consonant. It can be heard by Kriya Satzera, when you read out the Tzere. Then it shows the highest level, which is hidden. And what is it? The Holy of Holies. And the Greeks were not able to rule over this, because the Yud is hidden, because the transcendental power is a hidden power, not the revealed one. The menorah is the revealed Torah. The Torah Shebal Peh, no Bashamayim here, to be used by human beings, by Am Yisrael, through the Torah Shebal Peh. But the Kohen Gadol is hidden. The Kohen rules even over the Holy of Holies. That's why Kohen, if you add the other 10, so it turns out it is 10 higher than the Heichal. Than the Heichal, because he is able to go to the Holy of Holies. So the Yud demonstrates the level of Kedusha, which is the highest level of holiness. So that they couldn't reach. So Kohen, his number is 75. Because he has the power over that which is revealed and that which is hidden. This is Chotamo Shel Kohen Gadol. So that was able to stay alight for 8 days. Why 8? Because it represents what we call the 8th Madrega, which is the next octave, the higher level, the higher dimension. Now, it's all, to a great extent, a mnemonic, but it's a deeper analysis, recognizing also that the letters of the Torah are significant. But truth is, I think this higher dimension is understood a bit better today, that it's recognized already by very many scientists, that there's an area of life hidden from our senses. It's higher than the senses, as we find in different areas of life. And the Torah is therefore, the source of light is in the Aron. The Aron is also an expression of light. It's the hidden light of the Holy of Holies, represent also the power of the Kohen Gadol. And therefore, through this family, they were able to demonstrate that the mind behind the universe is that which controls ultimately whatever takes place in this world, and also controls human affairs, and as is shown in the history of the Jewish people, that, as was shown by the Maccabees. It's very interesting connection with this. Just a last comment, that the person who's considered the greatest, call him philosopher of history in recent times, Toynbee, he was very ambivalent about the Maccabees. On the one hand, he praised them highly. On the other hand, he also criticized them enormously for what they did. And it's like it was an inner conflict within him, which one can understand. Because after all, he didn't study the Maral. In fact, we had here in the yeshiva, in the early days, I think it was a lecturer of history, I think Cambridge. He came in from, but at that time we had scholarships from professors, and whilst he was here, he wrote the concepts of history based on the Maral's writings. Maral was also friendly with the Tzemach David. In his time, also in his area, there was David Gantz, who was a great Jewish historian, who also wrote a book on history, which was closely connected with his concepts, which are developed here by the Maral. So, we'll leave questions to the beginning of tomorrow's shir.